Hi everybody, and welcome back to my tiny house in the forest. It seemed like August ended all of a sudden and September arrived as a warm extension of the summer. With its shorter, more rainy days, the monstrous calls of the stags in the woods in the evening, and an abundance of fruits and berries in the landscape ready for the taking. So naturally, this is an important part of the year if you want to become more self-sufficient. For now it's time for picking and preserving food so it can last throughout the winter. And I believe that picking and producing your own food is a great way to getting a more healthy diet, but also to save money when you need to make ends meet. Which is something that I really need to do at the moment, especially after my car broke down last month and I needed to pay a lot of money to get it repaired. But also because I still have a lot of expensive projects on the house to come, so I need to be saving for that over the winter. But regardless, I think that being able to save money is a pretty important life skill in this day and age. Because it seems like that we are living in a time of crises, which means that everything is much more unpredictable and also expensive. Global climate changes make food harder to produce, the war in Ukraine makes energy less available, and global inflation drives up prices everywhere and for everyone. So saving money is not only a short-term solution, it might also be a long-term strategy for survival. So I went back out in the bush again, this time to find some elderberries, because my plan is that I want to make some delicious elderberry juice for winter, because it's just a very delicious and healthy drink that you can drink in the winter, filled with vitamin C. So it's something that I always prioritize making. But it's a little bit difficult to get these elderberries because they grow on these slopes, so it's difficult for me to reach them, and when I try to climb in the trees, some of the branches easily break off, so I might be a little bit careful. But anyways, I managed to get some, even though this year is not the best year for elderberries, because half of them are like raisins and the other half have not ripened yet. So it's a little strange year for that. But anyways, I think I'll try to make a new kind of elderberry juice this year, where I will mix it with mirabelles. And I remember maybe that last year there was a late mirabelle tree that still had fruit on it here in September, because that would be super delicious if I could mix those two berries in a juice for winter. So I cross my fingers. While saving money with self-sufficiency can make a difference in the here and now, sometimes it's also not the case. Because in these years, almost all of my money goes to building up my house and my homestead. So it's not like I'm putting a whole lot of money aside at the moment. But for me, learning self-sufficiency skills is also very much about training a mentality. One that will make me and also my household much more economically independent and resilient in time. With everything that's going on in the world in these years, I don't always feel totally confident that our governments necessarily know how to protect its citizens from the crises of the world. Sometimes these crises seem a little bit too complex and unmanageable to deal with on a national and indeed also on a global scale. So is it only a question of political will and courage? I think not. I think it's also a question of organizing on a smaller scale, maybe even on a household scale. I think we must all be better at addressing global complex questions in simple local solutions. Because today, the ideas and the knowledge that we gain ourselves at home can be shared in a global community with like-minded strangers that face the same general problems and issues as you do. Therefore, I believe that we must all learn how to rely more on ourselves. Or in other words, that we must become more self-reliant.
Værsgo.
Because I have to spend a lot of money on a wood stove and a chimney, I have decided not to go to Norway for a vacation like I did last year. Something that breaks my heart a little bit, because I've been to Norway, Lapland or Sweden every year since high school, except for 1 year during the COVID lockdown. But traveling with a backpack in beautiful nature can also be done in Denmark. And if I am to be totally honest, getting away and doing something different is what it's all about, not so much where you are. So I've decided that I will do a series of small mini vacations here in Denmark. Not only in the late summer, but also in the autumn and winter. And who can argue against the fact that Denmark is indeed a beautiful country to travel in? pretty good. So I just tasted the juice from the elderberries and the mirabelles, and they definitely go well together because the mirabelles gives kind of like a sweetness to the juice. And then I also added some honey that I got as a present out in the tiny house village last week, and then some regular white sugar. So now I just have to scald the bottles for the juice so I can put it into those so it won't get bad. And then I will make some jam out of the sea buckthorn that I collected by the sea this morning. So it was quite the pain to pick them off because it's a very thorny bush, but I managed to do it. So now I will make a jam out of those, maybe mixing it with some apples that I also found by the sea. They are definitely pretty strong, but that's also the point because then I can mix it up with boiled water. So these are actually concentrated juices so that they can last for a pretty long time.
Another of my strategies for saving money is to buy things in bulk in the supermarket. This means fewer times back and forth, and that I generally use more of the things that I have lying around. Things like plant milk, oats, canned tomatoes and rice will get me a long way. Oh yeah, and Earl Grey tea, because I decided for a month ago to totally stop buying coffee for myself. But funny enough, I actually did make a Buy Me a Coffee donation link for this channel, as many of you have requested. You can find it in the description of the channel, and I greatly appreciate donations of any size. Even though I must admit that reaching out for financial support is a little bit awkward for me. But luckily I'm able to supplement the things that I buy in the store with the things that I can harvest in my garden. And what I have available always changes with the season. I think that I have almost 30 different varieties of berries in my forest garden that I can harvest from late May to early October. always keeping my diet interesting and varied. I think that I've also gotten very good at making dishes with whatever food I have available in the garden at the moment. Right now I use a whole lot of beans, potatoes and zucchini. And whatever else is ripe at the time. So today I'm making a household specialty, a Spanish omelette. Or at least a variant of it. Another one of my money-saving mini vacations went to the West Coast, where I visited my good friend Nikolai at cold Hawaii. Not far from there is a beautiful coastline, where the landscape is forever marked by some tragic events that happened 80 years ago here in Denmark. This was the last time fascism was on the rise and Nazis invaded our countries and built bunkers like these up along the coastline. And now we're actually getting intel from Greenland, just on the other side of this ocean and the original home of my dog Bosimat, that US agents are trying to subvert the government and its vulnerable and small population. And once again, we find ourselves in a situation where another country tries to steal our land for geopolitical purposes. Because even though Greenland is a sovereign country, it's also a part of the Danish kingdom and culture. And I fear that this situation might escalate to something that might be as unpredictable as it is expensive and dangerous. We are already paying the Ukrainians a lot of money for them to fight our war in Europe against the Russians in the East. And who knows what retaliatory sanctions our neighbors in the West will put upon us if we resist giving up our land and our freedom. So, we do indeed all face a great deal of crises out there in the world and in our home countries. And you can't necessarily change the world, but you can change yourself. And the way that you go about living your life with what you have at hand. And I guess that small acts of resistance can make a change. At least they have proven to do so in the past.